So you've been telling yourself the same lie for how many years now? Maybe you don't even hear it as a lie anymore. Maybe it sounds so reasonable and actually sounds like wisdom. And maybe it sounds like I'm just being responsible. Now, that lie is this: I'll move when I'm ready. So I want to tell you something that took me a long time to learn. And it's the reason we're closing this series today. If you have not checked out the series, this is part 3 of a 3-part series. So 1 and 2 are the prior 2 episodes. So ready is not a place you arrive at. Ready is not a feeling that shows up before you act. Ready is a myth. And as long as you are chasing it, you're going to stay exactly in the same spot, exactly where you are. This is episode 194. This is part 3 of the trap of the perfect plan. And this is where we are going to finish it. Welcome to Live to Thrive. My name is Michael Hicks. And if this is your first time with us, this show exists for one particular reason is I help men, women, families become the CEO of their home again, not the boss, not the dictator, however, the CEO and the one who takes ownership, the one who leads with intention and builds instead of drifts. Identity, purpose, restoration. That's what we're all about here on this episode on this podcast. And that's what this whole series has been working towards. And I'm super excited to share that with you. So if you haven't checked out the other 2 parts, I'm going to kind of go give you a quick recap of what that actually was and what that actually is. So here's the recap if you're just joining us, and this is part 3. Part 1 was why overthinking is just a fear wearing a suit, kind of like a fear monger. We named the enemy. We talked about how overthinking isn't discipline. It's actually, and it isn't diligence. Most of the time, it's fear that's basically learned how to dress up in a suit and actually sound smart. Make sense? Cool. Part 2 was the price of the pause. We counted the cost. Every day you wait until you're ready. And is this the day that gets spent away and you do something else, just not on your terms, right? And the pause isn't neutral. It's what I would call expensive. So today is part 3. We are going to finish that arc. Here's the thing. Naming the problem is not enough, and neither is understanding the cost. At some point, you will have to answer the question underneath all of it. When will you actually move? And when are you going to tell yourself this? Is it today? The honest answer is never. If you're waiting to feel ready first, it's never going to happen. So let's actually talk about these terms. Let's define our terms. This is the myth itself, because ready really gets thrown around like it means something specific, and it doesn't. And ask 10 men what ready feels like, and you're going to get 10 different answers, 10 different thoughts, none of which actually describe with are just being described with precision. And that's your first clue. If you cannot define it, you cannot arrive at it. It's not a destination. It's a moving target you invented. So you'll have a reason to stay parked. Follow me so far? Good. Here's what I've watched happen through my own experience, through my professional counseling, through my professional coaching, in my own life, and in years of sitting across from men in this work. Ready almost never precedes action. Ready follows it. Think about the last time you were nervous about something, anxious about something. A hard conversation, maybe with your wife, a decision at work, stepping into a leadership role you weren't sure you've earned. Did the confidence show up first and then you acted? Or did you act shaking, uncertain, half convinced you're going to get it all wrong, and then the confidence showed up during or after? I just recently had this conversation with my daughter who had a second day of volleyball tryouts for club volleyball, and anxious, nervous, and we had a conversation. And throughout that process, it changed things. It was a confidence builder, right? So let me just have you land that for a second. And that's not an accident. That's how competence is actually built. Confidence is a downstream of action, not an upstream of it, all right? However, or yet, if you get it backwards, you think feeling ready, then act. The truth is act, then eventually feel ready. So when you say I'm waiting until I'm ready, what you're actually saying is this: whether you know it or not, I'm waiting for a feeling that only shows up after I do the thing I'm avoiding. You with me so far? And that's not patience, y'all. That's a trap with a respectful name or reputable name. In fact, I want to tie in a little bit of scripture here because I think this is so pertinent to the situation here. I think about Moses in the burning bush. You remember this story? God gives him a mission. And what does Moses say? Who am I to go? What if they don't believe me? I've got a stutter. I've never been eloquent. Every excuse Moses gives is really just a version of, I'm not ready. And God doesn't argue with the feeling. God doesn't just say, yes, you are. You're totally ready. God just says, essentially, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to walk with you. So go anyway. Isn't that a powerful statement? So readiness was never the qualification. Obedience was. And then movement was. God didn't wait for Moses to feel like a leader before making him one. Does that make sense? The feeling came from the walking, not before it. Now, that's the pattern all through Scripture. And it's the pattern maybe even in your house right now, where you don't feel like the CEO of your home yet. Good. Start leading anyway. Because the identity catches up to the action, and it's not the other way around. So I want to give you a little bit, a story here that I think ties in well. And one that I haven't really shared before on this show or on my podcast or my platform. And I want to bring it to you in a future episode with a full detail that you deserve. Let me grab a quick drink here. For now, I'm just going to give you the short version of what I learned the hard way. I waited for a feeling that was never coming. And the day I stopped waiting was the day everything actually started. I remember distinctively, I had the opportunity to hire a coach and work with this coach. And I knew it was going to get me closer to my end result. I hesitated for a long time. I wasn't in the right framework. I wasn't in the right decision mode. And what it actually cost me was time. And even with that, opportunity to build for my clients. And the version of me didn't get to the spot. It could have gotten to the spot sooner, but I delayed it. It wasn't until I hired a coach, and I'm not going to tell you who that coach was. You might have heard this in other episodes, but I hired a coach to mentor me, to change me, to help me build my brand, live to thrive. And as I look back, yes, it was an investment, but I would have tripled that investment on what I paid for because it brought me more confidence. It built me clarity. It gave me peace instead of waiting for my readiness. So that's the short version of it. And let's do this. Let's bring this back together for a second. I want this series really to land with you because I truly believe as a sinful fleshly man, when you hear the word ready, every man listening to this has a ready, right? list running in the back of their mind. I'll lead family devotions when I know the Bible better. How many of you said that? Or I'll have the hard conversations with my wife when I figured out exactly what to say to her. Sound familiar? Or I'll set the vision for our family when I'm more financially stable. Or maybe I'll apologize to my kids when I'm less embarrassed about what I did. Here's the problem. Your family isn't waiting for readiness. You know what they're waiting for? They're waiting for you. They're waiting for you. Your wife doesn't need a husband with the perfect script, which I talked about the perfect plan, right? She doesn't need a husband who shows up she needs a husband who shows up in the mess and puts forth his best effort. Your kids don't need a father who has it all figured out. I still am learning at 53 years old and still have clients that I coach. I may not have it all figured out, but it's why I have a coach. That's why I spend time in scripture. It talks about discernment and wisdom, and the more you read, the more you get. What they need, though, is they need a father who's present while he figures stuff out. Now, the CEO of the home, I want to be really clear with this. It isn't the guy with the most polished plan. It's the guy who leads while underqualified. Yeah, you hear me on that? And that's the only kind of leading there has to be. Nobody feels ready to be a husband. Maybe you do. I did. But not a lot of people do, because there's a lot of trials and tribulations through that process. People get engaged and they wait a year. Why are you waiting a year? Why? When Amber and I did premarital counseling, Pastor Doug, love him, long-term friend, but he was real direct. He's like, why are you waiting? We looked at each other and we're like, I don't know. Why are you waiting? So the only kind of leading there is be the guy who leads while under construction or underqualified. Nobody feels ready to lead a family through a hard season. Nobody does. It's hard stuff. You don't know what to do. You're scared. You may be tired. You may be exhausted. Uncertain. Do it anyway. Do it when it's hard. Embrace the suck. You know, God teaches us in Scripture that even as Christians and faith followers, I'm not even going to give a denomination of religion. I'm just going to call you a relationship with Jesus Christ. Our path is not going to be easy. He talks about in Scripture how it is narrow. What does that mean? There might be some obstacles along the way. How are you getting through those obstacles? I'm also reminded of this scripture. Joshua wasn't handed readiness either. God's charge to him after Moses died wasn't wait until you feel strong. You know what it was? Be strong and courageous, with which only makes sense as a command if the strength wasn't there yet. You don't command a feeling that's already present, y'all. You command a man to move despite its absence. That's your charge too. Not wait until you're strong enough. Be strong. Be courageous. The order comes before the feeling, not after. So there are 3 moves in my professional experience here that kill this myth. And I want to break them down for you. And I might go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I'm going to break them down for you. So I want you to pick the smallest true action. Not the biggest, brave one, because that's where men get their egos in the way and they want to do grandiose, beautiful, huge things. I know I'm one of those men. You don't need a grand gesture. You just need a decision that a slightly more honest version of you would make it in the next 24 hours. You with me so far? Cool. Here's what it is. If you are driving right now, probably is a good time to either record or know where the time segment is on this episode, because this is going to help you. Have the 5-minute conversation, not the 2-hour one. Send the text. Be prayerful about it. Make the call. Ready shows up in inches, not in leaps. That's the first one. The second one, replace "I'll know when I'm ready" with "I know I'm ready because I moved." You see how powerful that is? You see how much that's changed? I'm going to repeat that to you again. Replace "I'll know when I'm ready," ... with "I know I'm ready because I moved." This is such a powerful language shift. In fact, it's very clear and very it talks about this in scripture, how the words we say is the words we become. I'm going to tell you this really quickly. I was at one point in my career in a private sector school, and I'm not going to blast anybody on this, but it was affiliated with religion. I was an administrator, and I remember having conversations in which these administrators and individuals would throw out the F-bomb. Shocked. And maybe, somebody, their language, how they talk to you, their tonality, what they said to you, it really shapes who they are. So I'm going back to you. The language that you speak shapes your belief. All right? It shapes your belief. So to finish number 2, the 3 moves that killed this myth is that you have to stop treating readiness as a precondition. What you need to do is start treating it as a byproduct. Does that make sense? Cool. Let me get into number 3. Let someone else carry the plan with you. I think, in my professional experience, this is where the trap almost always wins, in isolation. Most people, especially men, and I'm going to speak to men particular here, but I think most people as well, but men wait longer. Men also doubt harder, and they stall out more completely when they're carrying the decision alone. Men, I'm speaking to you directly. Your plan doesn't have to have a perfect plan, and it doesn't have to be solo. So do it with a partner. All right. So I want to kind of already land the plane here, but I think this is even though this might be a shorter series here today, I think this is really beneficial to you. Is, again, the last 2 episodes. Part 1 was overthinking was never wisdom. It was fear in a suit. Part 2 was the pause was never free. It's already costing you. And part 3 today is ready was never coming. Because here's the deal. It was never in front of you to begin with. It was always going to be behind you, waiting for you to move first. Does that make sense? If there's one particular thing that I want you to walk away from this entire series, fam, and thank you. If you have not subscribed, please do so. Send it to 5 of your listeners or 5 of your friends. Give me a 5-star rating. Truly appreciate that. Really tell me which one really resonated with you, and maybe drop a comment. You can go any of my socials. If you want to go to Instagram, that's a good one too. It's Coach_HicksMB. coach_HicksMB. Or if you just go in the Google search engine and you type Live to Thrive, that's LIV, the number 2 Thrive, and type in Michael Hicks, you'll find me. And so if there's one thing I want you to walk away from this entire series with, it's this. You don't need to feel ready to lead your home. Man, I'm talking to you. You need to just lead your home. And then let the readiness catch up with you. Because I'll be fully transparent with you. This is exactly the work that I do with men one-on-one. In fact, I only have, my calendar is getting pretty booked here. I have one spot left. I just filled the second spot last week. Shout out to Aiden. If Aiden ever has listened to this, I'm not going to give him his last name, but shout out to him for joining my VIP package. So you just don't need to lead your home. You have to let the readiness catch up. All right. And this is exactly what I do when I work with individuals like yourself that's listening one-on-one. There's no hype. There's not a script to memorize. It's real, authentic work that is proven to work. I've walked it in leadership. I built it one honest step at a time. And if anything in this series has been really sitting on you in these last 3 weeks, that's not by accident either. You know that, right? God calls us particular things happen for particular reasons. So if you're at a point, fam, if you're at a point and you're really done waiting, and you're done waiting to feel ready, right? You know what I mean by that. If you know you need maybe someone in your corner. I talked about this through that journey of not doing it alone. Who's actually going to walk with you through this process? And to walk this out with you instead of just cheering from the sideline. And if you're not participating, you're not in the event, time's going to go by and you're going to look back and say, what has happened? That's what coaching with me is about. If you want more information on this, like I said, you can go to my coach on the link here in the show notes. You can book a call with me. I prefer I prefer to get to know you before I book a call with you, though. So I walk in with clarity and understanding. We can book a free clarity call if that's something that you're interested in. I just want to ask you to fill out some simple questions so I know, and then we can kind of walk through how that would actually look for you. So I'm just going to share with you this challenge as you move on to this next week. Stop waiting to be ready. Stop waiting to be ready. Think about this for a moment. What is one thing that you could do right now that would change that whole perspective? Just one thing. One thing you could do. What would that be? And maybe you need to walk along with me along that side. So this was episode 194. And this is the close of the trap of the perfect plan. So if this series really meant something to you, don't just keep it to yourself. Send it to a man in your life, maybe who's stuck. Maybe they're stuck on waiting. Maybe it's their own waiting of their own version of being ready. The show grows one share, one conversation at a time. And again, thank you so much for being a listener. I truly appreciate that. As always, 1% better in mind, body, and soul. And always stay flexed. Be well, y'all.